Good evening, it's 8 o'clock on the 8th of October, and welcome to Science Film for this special screening of The Nightingale, a film which was produced here 40 years ago. Science Films was created by Richard Goodwin and his wife Christine in the wake of their collaboration on The Tales of Beatrix Potter, and in the early 70s, this building was a ruin, a derelict building, which they decided to transform into little film studios. The part of the work was obviously to restore the building, and they started straight away making films, with Richard producing and Christine directing. One of the things that made it possible for Science Films to be an independent film production entity was that Richard had acquired the equipment from the MGM studio, which at the time were closing down. It's worth noting that this big entity like MGM were closing at the same time as a small entity like Science Films was being born. And Richard's passion for big equipment and all the engineering that went with it made it possible in the technology of the days to be an operational film production company and to make films. The work on the building took a number of years to complete, and The Nightingale is at the very early part of is almost the second film which was actually produced on this stage as an operating film studio. So it is 40 years that we made this film, but it's also a celebration of something else. Is that it's also 40 years that I have joined Science Films and 40 years that I've started working here. So 40 years ago, I was 20 obviously, and I arrived here in this very room, and in this room was the set and all the elements for the making of The Nightingale. As a young, passionate about film and filmmaking, one of the things that was the most exciting for me was the opportunity to work with this kind of equipment. The Mitchell NC is an iconic camera. It's you see pictures of Orson Welles and pictures of Eisenstein and Ozu and all the great film director Renoir next to those cameras, directing and doing their work next to those very machines. And inside it is the movement, and this movement here was finalized. The engineering of it was finalized in 1936 and never changed since. Basically, what it does is that it brings the film emulsion in front of the gate, which receives the image from the lens, and it takes photographs here in that gate when the shutter is open. Then when the photograph is taken, the film is pulled down by one frame, like I've done just now, and while the film is steady in the gate, the shutter opens again and takes another photograph. And this sequence of events is taking place 24 times per second to reproduce fluent movement. If you go slower, it's jerking. But in the case of The Nightingale, you will see that this process of doing 24 frames per second was further broken down, because The Nightingale is in fact an animation film. So instead of just having a motor that would just there and does this movement 24 times per second, we actually did it differently. And let me introduce to the stars of the film, which are those little puppets, and they were animated. So what we were doing is that we would move the hands, for instance, of the character, take one photograph, then move the hand a bit more, take another photograph, and then move the hand a bit more, take another photograph, and so on and so forth. And you had to do that 24 times in every second of finished film. And of course, in the film there is not just a hand moving, there might be a lot of other things. So one of the features of those puppets is that they were made out of lead sheeting, which is rigid and self-holding. So you could, for instance, if you wanted the skirt to lift, you could lift it a bit, take one photograph, lift it a bit more, take a 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 photograph, and then start going down. Take another photograph, go down, take another photograph, go down. And then over the series of frames, when you show it at the normal speed, you'll have the skirt doing a little movement like this. We had, for instance, on this set here, we had a massive mountains where those people live, made of cork and pretending to be rocks and pretending to be ivory and pearls. And there is a shot, for instance, where the camera follows those little people going all the way down around the mountains, down into the underneath of the mountains where the kitchens are, where the workers are. The palace is right at the top. And this shot took, I think, 11 days to do. Obviously the camera did not pan round, the camera just went down, and it was the mountain that rotated in front of the camera to give the impression of going round. And then all those little people were going down the mountains, flapping around with their head turning, their hands flapping, their fans moving, and the light dimming, and each thing was done one frame at the time, very meticulously over a very, very long thing. Plus the camera had to focus and zoom and so on and so forth. Anyway, so there was a lot of things going on, and it was very exciting, and it was when I first started working at Sands Films. So I'm back, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Hans Christian Andersen. He was born in 1805 in Odense near Copenhagen. His father was a cobbler who died when he was only 11, and his mother was a washerwoman prone to drink. He was tall, delicate, dying to escape what he later called the swamp of his childhood. He had from an early age an uncanny talent for doorstepping, trying to persuade people of his talent as a singer, he had a beautiful voice, as an actor, and later as a poet. This is how he met Jonas Collins, a businessman who was on the board of the Theatre Royal in Copenhagen. Jonas Collins became his protector, paid for his schooling, and supported him for years to come. He procured a grant for the young Andersen to go on a European tour, where he was smitten with Italy. There he wrote his first novel, published a year later, which became very successful. In 1835, he returned to Denmark, already famous, and published then his first 5 tales in a little booklet. From then on, he was a celebrity, courted everywhere. He travelled again around Europe, bursting into the drawing room of celebrity like Dumas, Balzac, Heine, Jenny Lind, Dickens, whom he visited several times. He died in 1875, an odd, tormented, self-obsessed creature, all his life dependent on others to house him and support him. His several novels and journals are now more or less forgotten, but his 156 fairy tales are known the world over. They are remarkable for having endured despite the passing of time and fashions, despite an unashamed moralism and the often lethal association with children's literature. The other remarkable aspect of his work is the economy of the writing, unusual for the time, and his dry, specific humour. Marxist historians have claimed him just as much as Walt Disney. But his tales are immortal all over the world, with one main theme: the underdog always comes out on top. The ugly duckling becomes a swan. And now I'm telling you a bit more about the film. So, I'm back and I'm going to tell you a little bit more in this introduction of tonight's The Nightingale. This is a film written and directed by Christine Edzard. It comes after, obviously, her work on Tales of Beatrix Potter and after the three other shorts which she did, which are combined together in Stories of a Flying Trunk. The peculiarity of those three, with and in common with The Nightingale, is that they're all adaptation of Hans Christian Andersen, and they also have already in these three films element of stop frame animation. That brings me to the design and the elements of the film, which are the visual element of the film. So Christine had trained in France with Rostislav Dobrzynski, known as Tonton, and he had worked with Christine on all her other work. The idea was to, everything was based on this miniature, which is now kept at Bethnal Green Museum. And the idea was to reproduce all of this world in different. Now, of course, in the original, it's made of ivory and wood, and for the film, what Tonton and Christine and all the team around it is try and find different ways of doing it. Now, one thing which is, I think, very important to mention about Tonton and working with Tonton is that he's a gentleman of a earlier generation. He's dead now, but he come from Russia, and he came with a tradition, theatre tradition, a huge experience and expertise. But his knowledge did not freeze his imagination. He was very, very, very inventive, and he could, although he had a deep understanding of techniques and tradition and had huge skills himself, what was most fascinating about him is his ability to have ideas, to invent how to solve the problems. Recreating this artificial world meant creating lots and lots of things, from little bowls of rice to a whole pagoda, all the instruments. I mentioned earlier on the puppets themselves, which are a combination of plaster, lead to do the animation, and with a wire structure underneath. This little kind of chrome horn thing is made out of a toy crocodile, and the legs have been chopped off, painted, redecorated, reinvented to become another object altogether. These ones were actually made as models. So those ones were, so there was a combination of techniques, what are different things. You have to remember, this is 40 years ago, yeah? So there was no 3D printers. In fact, I remember a conversation with Tonton where Tonton said it would be wonderful if there was somehow a machine that could print, he literally used that word, print objects at different sizes. Making props and making models, the scaling up and scaling down is the issue, not just of the object itself, but also the textures and the feel of it. Lo and behold, these things exist. The mention of musical instrument obviously brings me to the last element, which is the music. The music was adapted by Michel Sanvoisin, who has ever since continued his working relationship with Science Films. He's worked on every film that we've done since, from Bidid, Little Dorrit, and all the other films, right down to our latest production of The Good Soldier Schweik. But this was his first one. And one of the things that has always happened on all of those productions is that one source material is identified from the beginning. And in the case of the Nightingale, it was Beethoven. And that's why we've decided to show this film as a kind of puppet opera based on Beethoven's music, because it is Beethoven's 250th anniversary. And what Michel has done is that he has adapted, so his source material is mostly the string quartet number 12 for almost all of the themes of the artificial world of the court, and the treatment of that is all broken up. It's played with sometimes discordant instrument. It's syncopated. It has a little voice quartet to break up the things. It's as if there was no fluency. It's all broken up, and it's this world, the artificial world of the court, is pitched against the tune that comes from the Fourth Symphony, which is the voice of the Nightingale, which symbolize life, which symbolize obviously humanity and the real world, and which is sung in our film by the voice of a little boy. And there's a nice thing about that, is that voice, the voice of the little boy, also in a way is an almost involuntary reference to the fact that Hans Christian Andersen had a beautiful voice as a child, and that's one of the first things that he used to make his way in life, was to use his voice and to get noticed because of his voice. So that is it.
Now you might think this story reminds you of something. It might feel quite familiar, in fact. Well, you'd be quite wrong, because it happened far, far away in China, a very, very long time ago. Such a long time ago, it is high time it was told again before it gets forgotten too. in China, as you know of course, everything is Chinese. And so the Emperor's palace, and his gardens, and his court. The Emperor's palace was the most beautiful in the world and had been most costly to build. It was made entirely of ivory and porcelain and was extremely delicate. Everything in it was quite delightfully contrived.
How delightful. Quite delightful indeed. How perfectly delightful. What delightful indeed.
How delightful!
Perfection. How true.
Or you could say, perfection is like a pearl at the heart of all delight.
How true. How true.
Or you could say, perfect pleasure is a pearl. Or you could say, to delight in perfection is to own a pearl. Say, what is perfect
A drop of salt, a time, a drop in light, a drop is not a drop of pearl, a drop is not a pearl delight, a pearl.
We would say, perfect delight, a pearl.
A pearl, a heart, where is the pearl? There is no pearl to hold a pearl.
Or you could say, perfection is a pearl. Wherever your Imperial Majesty pleases to look, all is perfection.
How true. How true.
For the Emperor's pleasure.
A pearl, a heart, there is no pearl, there is no pearl.
A pearl. There is a pearl, there is no pearl.
We want a ring.
Delight should need no pearl. No pearl, no pearl, no pearl, no
There is no pearl.
Here's no pearl, need no pearl.
There is no pearl, there is no pearl.
Fetch my books.
The books. The books. The books. The books. His Imperial Majesty. The books for His Imperial Majesty. The books for His Imperial Majesty. The books for His Imperial Majesty. Fetch the books. Out the books. The books. The books for His Imperial Majesty. The books for His Imperial Majesty.
The Nightingale. The Nightingale. It says here in this book that on the very edge of my very own gardens is the most beautiful thing in it. And I pride myself, and we all pride ourselves, don't we, that we cultivate all that is beautiful. And I have never seen or heard of this nightingale. Now this is intolerable. Present me this nightingale at once.
May I suggest to your Imperial Majesty that all that is written is not true?
It
This
can't
nightingale
be
is
true.
possible.
It doesn't assist the fiction. Fabrication.
The whole world knows about this nightingale, and I don't. I want it. I must have it here at once. At once. At once. present the Nightingale at once.
A nightingale. Which nightingale? Never heard of this bird.
Must be presented at court at once.
It can't be famous.
At once.
I have never heard of it.
Tonight. Who has heard of this nightingale? Has anyone seen or heard of this nightingale? His Imperial Majesty wishes the nightingale to be presented at the nightingale. I have just been told someone knows about the nightingale. In the Imperial kitchens. In the Imperial kitchens? I ask you. In the kitchens. The nightingale must be presented at court. We shall have to ask in the kitchen.
Oh no!
In
Not
the
into
kitchen.
the kitchen. Oh, can't go into the kitchen. Oh no!
In the kitchen.
Not into the kitchen.
Oh.
Oh, we can't go into the kitchen. No. Oh.
Anyone here heard of a nightingale? Anyone here ever seen a nightingale? They tell me someone here knows about this nightingale. Here to tell us about this nightingale. Oh no! Does anybody here know about this nightingale?
I do. Every night when I go home, I stop and listen to it. It's lovely.
Little kitchen girl, if you will take us to see the nightingale, a permanent position in the kitchen will be arranged for you. And permission to see the emperor eat.
The kitchen. Nightingale. What nightingale? The nightingale. Which nightingale? Oh, nightingale. How true. How true. Nightingale. Nightingale.
Oh, so sweet! Nightingale, nightingale, nightingale. There it is.
Is that the Nightingale?
Seems to say all the things I think about and can't say. Like I thought it all out by myself. You know what I mean?
Quite delightful. Most excellent little Nightingale. We have the pleasure to invite you to attend the court, where His Imperial Majesty the Emperor of China wishes you to enchant him with your most charming art. Your Imperial Majesty, the Nightingale. is delightful. Quite delightful. Isn't it delightful?
How true.
Oh, isn't it delightful? Your Imperial Majesty, the Nightingale from Japan.
Charming.
Is it not enchanting? Quite the most beautiful bird I have ever seen. May I suggest to your Imperial Majesty a duet? A duet will be quite charming.
A duet.
Charming.
The bird is gone. Oh, that ungrateful bird. Striking
Banish it.
Gentlemen, your Imperial Majesty, pray remember that the best bird is this one. Firstly, it is much more beautiful to look at. Secondly, it is not only superior to the real nightingale on the outside, where the diamonds are, but inside. Your Imperial Majesty, gentlemen, you understand that the real bird cannot be depended upon, whereas in the mechanical bird, everything is determined. There is one song and no other.
No other.
We can explain everything. We can open it up to examine and appreciate how human thought has fashioned the wheels and the cylinder, and place them where they are, to turn as they should, achieving delightful perfection.
Go away. Go away. Don't you know I am the Emperor and no one is allowed near me?
I am no one.
Who are you?
I'm not important.
I'm not important at all.
Are you death? Go away.
I'm nothing.
Go away.
I am what could have been.
Go away. You're nothing. Nothing to do with me.
I am what should not have been.
Go away. You are nothing. Go away. You are nothing. Nothing. A beggar. I am the Emperor. You are nothing. Just a beggar. A vile beggar.
A beggar. 100
Go away.
beggars.
You are nothing.
1,000 beggars.
Go away. Music. Music. Please sing, little golden nightingale. Please sing. Please sing. Won't you sing for me? Won't you sing for me? I have honored you. I have given you gold and jewels and pearls. 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 Don't go. Don't go away. Don't go. For the Emperor's pleasure.
Each unit is a whole, yet it is also divisible, and each part of it is divisible again. What is divisible can be examined, and by examining each part of the whole,
I am the
we can
Emperor.
know
The Emperor doesn't want
your
to
Imperial
know.
Majesty is not
The Emperor wants to play.
Emperor's pleasure, polished, sparkling swarm, the Emperor's squadrons brightly burnished, starred, stifled, spangled, blaze the Emperor's squadrons, splendid, brazen, glitter, gleaming, clatter, skate the Emperor's squadrons, bearing, rumbling, glowing, roaring, tangle and wreck the Emperor's squadrons.
pleasure. I am the Emperor. Go away.
There's nothing left.
You've come back. I banished you, and you've come back.
I'm sure you will excuse me. I must go home now.
You've got lots of pretty things here. That's because you're very important. The Nightingale and me were not much bothered with important things. But we see things, little things like...
You could tell me about them. You could tell me about everything that goes on in my empire.
Sort of real things, like people really do.
Yes. You could tell me the truth. It would be a secret.
A secret. Now, if you want, I'll go downstairs and get you a cup of tea.
So here you are. You've now seen The Nightingale, a film that we made at Sounds Films 40 years ago. Since then, many things have changed. Technology have changed, and we have matured. With things have evolved, and it's quite possible that if we were to do The Nightingale today, we wouldn't do it quite the same way. However, there is a few things that have not changed at all. One of them is that Sounds Films, there's an extraordinary continuity in Sounds Films. We're still here, and in fact the very fact that we're able to share this film with you tonight, 40 years on, is precisely because not only we still have the film, but on top of that we're also able to control what we do with it. We've retained this independence, this ability to do it ourselves, and to do it all ourselves. In fact, we're under lockdown. There's hardly anyone interfering with what Soundsfilm is doing, and we're able to dig out a film from 40 years ago and share it potentially to the whole world, because now it's on the web, so potentially millions of people could watch it. So we've retained that, which is something that Soundsfilm has always been very keen to protect and to defend. The other thing that hasn't changed is the overall message that those films have been doing. So since The Nightingale, or even before The Little Match Girl, to via Little Dorrit, right up to our latest production of The Goose of the Schweig, there is an overall message of all of those films which remains the same, which is generally a faith in humanity, a faith in people rather than technologies, a faith in the fundamental goodness of people that is somewhere in all of us and has to be found. With this, good night. I hope you enjoyed the film. Share it, send us some comments, talk about it, send us some feedback. If nothing else, go and visit our site and look at the Goose of the Schweig. If there is a sense of there is a sense of urgency. Maybe that's why we're repeating ourselves. The message remains, but the context in which we're saying it changes a bit, and it is important to say it again so that it gets you. Anyway, with this, good night. Thank you for joining us tonight, and see you later.